Welcome to Politics Plus with Nkosi Zulu. Today we are hosting the Honorable PR Councillor, Mr. Zwakele Mncwango, and also the KZN Provincial Chair. We are going to be discussing just a few issues around, the trending political complexes and issues, as well as his journey through his lifetime of, starting his political career to about now. So this is another episode of the Politics Plus, and Mr. Zwakele, welcome.
Morning to you, Makeba, and the viewers.
Thanks very much. Look, before we even go further, because we know you've got a very long journey into politics, but we want to just find out, or actually just try and narrate to us in brief summary your political career from your inception. I understand it was in around 2002 or even before or earlier than that. Just give us a brief of your political journey till to about now.
Look, answering the question, it was 2001 when I started to be active in politics. I grew up in an area, Wanongoma, where I wasn't really into politics, to be honest, but environment where it was temporarily IFP politics that we grew up under. But I've never been a member of any party. Up until I go to the university, I started to be more conscious about politics. Then after I finished my university, I started to have an interest more and more in politics. Then I've joined the DA in 2001 when I met the former leader, Roger Barroso. We've discussed about politics. I met him in Devonport and I got interested in politics. That's how I joined.
Look, I don't mean to cut you short. I know you have too much insights. When I was doing my background checks, I learned that you are somehow related to Mr. Albert Mncwango, who has also himself been in a very, controversies of politics and stuff. And I've also learned that in your home state, or even your family, all of your family members belong to a particular political party, which I think I can name Inkatha Freedom Party, And your decision to join Democratic Alliance was not received well, apparently in your homestead or by your family members. Apparently you gave them a shock. What made you join Democratic Party at that time, even at that time, leaving your family, your friends, your homestead and everybody else?
I don't think we can say it didn't welcome a decision. I would say yes, everyone was surprised, especially because I wasn't really someone who was into politics anyway. It's just a decision I took. Yes, Albert Mncwango is my uncle, Bomncane. But it's not also true that everyone is IFP. We've got a diverse
within the family.
Within the family, I think obviously pre-94, it was predominantly IFP. It was very difficult, Wanongoma, to come out and say we are part of any other party except the IFP. It was just like that, I think one of our neighbors, Philip Mon, was a founder of the ANC in the area then. Not a fan of the ANC per se, but
he was the one to mobilize.
Because it was very difficult to mobilize for the ANC. It was very, very volatile situation then. But I think what made things more easier for me is that I joined another party when I was already in Durban, outside from...
So you ran away from home.
Yeah, but...
You ran away from home to come and join.
But all in all, for me, I felt I was just more of aligning in terms of the values.
Okay.
I'm just one of the person who believe in a national society. At that time, I felt this would be the vehicle to take us to where we can unite our country and really prosper, all of us together.
I understand, because on some of your writings here as well, it says that you are not somebody that just joins a political party. You first study the policies, the manifestos, not the manifestos. What do you call these documents?
Policies and values.
The policies and values.
Even the manifesto, actually. The manifesto also guide you to understand. I must tell you, before I joined the DA, I think it was election for 2000. Yeah, I think 2000 election, if I'm not mistaken.
It was still under the leadership of Tony Leon.
Yeah, but provincially it was Roger Barros. But what I remember is that before I made a decision to join, I actually attended the rallies, this was before the election, of different parties, just to understand if I really aligned. I remember I went to Inanda attending the AFP rally.
Yeah.
I think there was also an ANC rally in Kingswell Stadium, if I'm mistaken. I was there as well. I became Unoma rally for that day, for those days.
I was just
to understand myself. It was very important for me to align and see if really which party I will really join, because I was having that interest in politics.
So the reason why you are so close to the Unoma rally girl, what's a real name? We always see you take her along. Temberg.
Yeah.
So she basically stimulates what you did. She joined any party, do you know?
No, she didn't join.
She hasn't?
Yeah.
But you took good care of her, man. No, look, moving right along into the political journey and complexes again. We understand that then there was a very long time, that period that we spent in Democratic Alliance. And then, boom, in which year? 2016 you resigned? Was it 2022?
No, 2022.
Yes. Then after so much, because I think, me personally, as somebody that follows politics closely, I think you are at your prime there. You were doing, I feel, you were doing quite well with all the projects that you were leading, more especially the water and sanitation infrastructure in Durban, which was the most recent. You were working so hard to even, display and surface the acts of corruption. Then why leave the DA after so much invested work?
Look, in life, there's a point where you say, enough, and I'm one of those persons who just make a decision. I don't wait when I have to make a decision. I firstly analyze the environment and see if it's still conducive for me to be in that space. So we figure out no manje sokusigcineni. So basically, and I must correct this because people sometimes think there was any tensions between me and the DA, or whether there was no fight at all.
Yeah.
I reached a point where I was saying, you know what, I don't believe the party really stand for what I thought stood for, from the beginning.
After so long.
Exactly, because you travel a journey. People divorce after 25 years.
So you support people divorcing after 25 years?
You have to if it doesn't work out.
Reasons.
Yeah, it doesn't work out.
Okay.
So politics njalo, you go in there thinking it's kuzoba right. You go to a relationship naye and thinking uzoyinto eyifunayo. Along the journey you realize no, this is not what I was expecting kulo muntu lo. So I reached a point where to say at my peak as well, because I said I rather go outside. Because one thing that's good about me, Makeba, is this: I decided to firstly ensure that career-wise I'm stable before I go to politics. Definitely. Now, so I knew that when I left legislature at that time, I can go back to private sector, and I was also prepared to go and do my PhD as well. So for me, it was a decision that said, let me take a decision regardless where I'm going.
No, but I beg to differ on that one. Through what I've investigated or through what I've researched, because apparently there's only 3 days in between you resigning from the Democratic Alliance to you joining Action SA.
Yes.
But before we even get to that, I understand and I fully agree that there was no bad blood between you and the DA. But I'm still interested to find out what created a situation whereby you eventually say you give up. Now, this is not a captured media house or platform.
Yeah.
I want you to be very honest with us. We know previous leaders in the DA that have quit before you, or that have resigned from Democratic Alliance. I'm not influencing you to say this, but they've cited few issues such as racism, them being undermined, the central command, if there's any central command that influences or that drives them to make the decisions. What is yours, Mr. Mngwango, that made you leave the Democratic Alliance? Before we even go to that transition, because I want to basically dispute that you left the legislature knowing or with an understanding that you were going to go back to private sector. That one I'm disputing, but we'll get to that. But give us the reasons as to why.
You have a right to have a different view. I will tell you why. When you make a decision to leave a relationship, you don't just leave on that day. You take time to think about it. So it took me time to think about the transition and why I need to leave the DA. And I can tell you, for example, one of the leaders from other parties, we traveled to Norway and Canada. There was already that discussion. People are talking about Mngcango may leave, Mngcango may leave. It was already there. Yeah. Anyway, that space of a moment, there were other parties engaging me because I was traveling with other parties. They were saying, but we hear you are leaving. Why can't you come this side? So already there was that kind of engagement that was happening. That's when they actually say also was engaging with me as well. Yeah. But to answer your question about the when for me was the day, it's a manner how Mmusi was treated, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
The transition, how Mmusi left the DA and how the party, because remember, from 2015, I was serving on federal executive of a DA. So the highest decision-making body. Every decision, I was there when were made. One is an issue that says we had all along saying there's an issue with the EFF, for example, as a DA. Then come 2016, we then engage with the EFF, form government.
The coalition.
Yes.
I remember the one in, what you call that place down in...
Johannesburg, it's in Cape as well, exactly, yes. So we were able to govern with the help of the EFF. Now,
did you support the decision?
Me, yes, I did.
Okay.
I did support. Now, the issue for me is, when we made those decisions, we were making them as a majority. But when things crack, then we'll find that Mmusi will be isolated. You see?
As if he was the one that
exactly. Because as a leader, you come to a structure, you engage with the structure, and then they accept your proposal, and it get engaged. It was a robust discussion. But now, when one person gets isolated from a collective, for me, it's a principal issue. So I can't accept that. But then I think the other problem was the return of Helen. Because remember, Helen was left as a premier. Yes. Then she came back. Then when she came back, she was more of a person who want to bulldoze everyone.
As a federal leader.
And I think a day where I said, this is not for me, there was a meeting when we engaged, because obviously they blamed the failures of our election 2019 to Mmusi. Whereas we were of the view that we must take collective responsibility of the election.
At that time, EFF was rising.
It was, yes. But also, remember, you're sitting in these meetings, you also see when, for example, Herman will come to FedEx and request to make some decisions, then you will find that he will always be micromanaged as a mayor, being told, no, you can't spend budget here. Because remember, when you engage the EFF, and I must say this, EFF...
transactional...
Exactly. EFF get demonized as people who are all about tenders. And I can assure you now, there was never a stage where EFF made a demand for tenders in Johannesburg, for example, or Mandela Bay. At no stage. What EFF will demand, they will say, we see your budget, but we want to see more budget going to townships. That's Definitely. All. Then that's where the fight was all about. Because we'll find that DA will say, but no, they don't pay rates. We must service Midrand, Sentin, and all those areas. Why you must go to Alexandra, Soweto, don't pay much. So that's where the issue was mainly, not that EFF was demanding tenders. But now, the issue then, come 2019, I remember when I was we had a meeting here in Durban, where Tony Leon came. He was not a leader by that time, obviously. He was just a senior leader. Then there was this thing about also to discuss how the DA must influence the ANC conference to get Ramaphosa elected. One of the things for me...
Wait, Mr. Mngcango. Yeah. You are telling me that the DA planned to influence the conference of the ANC?
Yes.
As early as 2019, you are
Yes.
saying? Okay.
When Ramaphosa was elected, remember, there was this thing to say, look, DA had an interest on the outcome of the ANC conference.
Definitely. Because they were hoping for the decline and stuff. Yes,
exactly. So then I had a public speech with Tony Leon in one of the meetings here in Durban, where he was telling us about how Ramaphosa going to be a game changer. So I then said to him, you are confusing my province, as a leader of the province. So you can't come in my province and tell people that you must support Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa is ANC. So then we had a serious tensions from then, because I said, I don't believe anyone from the ANC can rescue the country.
Yeah.
But if you guys believe Ramaphosa is the Messiah, it's up to you,
then
not me.
Then let us all go and join ANC.
You know?
Why don't we
so then I think
ANC?
the crack started from there, and then we went to election, obviously, with those issues. Then when Musi left, I think for me, also the day where I said, I bombed out that meeting, it's when Helen in a meeting said something like, we were just obviously reviewing my elections. Then Helen says, it's so difficult to understand what we need to do to gain the black votes in South Africa, because we have tried all token leaders.
There we
so
go.
For me, was the end. Because I stood up in that meeting. I said, Helen, are you saying we are token? Because I was there as the leader of the province. So I said, I'm elected by the province, democratically elected. So for you to say...
You don't need to say no more. No, I don't mean to cut you, but I don't think you need to say anymore. From this narrative, I've picked up three things.
Yeah.
It's racial issues, because every time we speak to any dark-skinned leader of the DA, these issues will surface. I mean, if you're telling me, Mr. Mngwango, that EFF was fighting, we are learning it from you, that EFF was fighting for the expenditure of the budget, so that it's even to everybody, more especially in Nelson Mandela Bay, where they had power, and in the Johannesburg Metro. And then DA was against that.
Yeah.
They were against township expenditure of the budget then. To us, or to the masses, we view that as racism. And the next one is
systematic racism.
Exactly, systematic racism, which we are leading to just now, and I want to find out how Action SA will combat it. And the next one is, obviously you were used as tokens. So when these people viewed you as a leader, they looked at a tool, at a spanner at which they can hold. Now, how is it different then in Action SA? To be brief before we go into further questions, how is the treatment or the view different now in Action SA?
Look, Action SA is really a true multiracial organization, which really aligned with my values. That is why the first thing that Mashaba, when he spoke to me, because we had same views because remember Mashaba was with me on Friday Executive. So some of the issues that we were having uncomfort with from the FedEx from the DA, we were able to say, how then we build the organization that is really going to bring everyone together, but understanding where we come from. So here, we are building an organization that is pro-poor. That's where we differ, because right now, we are not apologetic, we are not apologetic. We stand for the poor. That's it. So as much as we are a multiracial organization, but we stand for the poor.
We'll give
and
you
the poor problem is black.
Yeah. Well, yes, we'll give you more chance to narrate your vision on Action SA. But there's something that I want to highlight, because I speak to Francois Rogers, to Mr. Rogers. Yeah, we've got a very long relationship with him. And I speak to him randomly. And he says, because I told him that I'll be hosting you here, and he says to me that I should ask you why, knowing very well that you are going to leave Democratic Alliance, you still enjoy those trips to Germany, and because that is his worry. He's worried about why did you then still take those journeys up to overseas and enjoying the perks and spending DA's perks and stuff. So why did you then go overseas with all the other leaders, knowing very well that you were leaving DA?
I think the mistake here is understanding. DA wasn't paying for those trips. First of all,
it's taxpayers' money.
It was the legislature, and I was still a member. Remember, when you serve notice to resign, you don't say, I'm not going to do other responsibilities because I'm leaving end of the month. You still do what's expected from you to do.
So you still went on the trip after you served the notice?
No.
Or you didn't serve the notice?
It was before that. It was
before serving the notice?
Yes. So the only thing here is I left legislature after I came back from abroad.
Okay.
But I wasn't there because of the DA's money or what. I was there doing my duty as a member of legislature.
Deployed by
and
DA.
Also as a CPA member. So I was the only CPA member. So it wasn't like for anyone other members. I was the only one who's a CPA member. So I had to go there.
So irrespective of whether you belong?
Yes.
No, then I'll give him that answer. It's okay, because he asked that question. Now, we want to fast forward now. We'll give you a chance about Action SA, but then we want to look into all the other projects and initiatives that you've done. When I was working for radio up there, and you were very vocal and you were very influent at raising issues of corruption. I remember we dealt quite largely with the issue of corruption when eThekwini Council paid for the conference that they called. I don't know if it was a conference, but it was proclaimed to be a women's function during the Women's Month last year, which proved that it was an ANC Women's League type of thingy. But then I want to ask you if you can just give us a brief on this and then tell us if we eventually got an outcome and if the outcome was satisfying to you, so that we can then tell the masses or the public now that yes, Mr. Mngwango initiated this, we processed it, we followed all the litigation processes if there were any, and then the outcome was this. Because I see Mr. Mbele is still holding the office there, and I recall that the board, the IEC board, was disbanded, or they were at the end of their term. Did somebody go untouched, or was there repercussions because of that matter? It was 56 million. Huh?
No, it was 5 point something million.
5 point something million, yeah. So how did that matter go about, Mr. Mngwango?
Look, first of all, I think I must say the problem we have is we have systems in place that seek to fight corruption, but they are not used to fight corruption at times. They are used to create a perception as they are fighting corruption. So sometimes you think they are fighting corruption, but just perception that you perceived as you're doing something, not doing it. So
you're referring to the CIU?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying this because they even had findings on that matter, and it became clear that the deputy manager, Sipho was implicated. And I think Washa was
just a slap on the
I don't
wrist.
think it was much, but also there was something that came out on his own affidavit that he got instruction to do this, although it's wrong, from Unziga of the ANC
yes.
Now Unziga is not part of the council, right? How do you hold him accountable? Then it meant a municipality should have then
litigated the process.
But also the issue of recovering money, because for me was to say, how do we recover money? I don't even think the money was recovered, because the conference took place and
the payment was made.
The payment, no. Remember what happened is the ICC belongs to the city. So it became paperwork transaction.
Oh, not the physical.
So
funds.
now the city was supposed then to transfer money after the event. But I was able to raise the issue before they made the payment.
Yeah, now I remember.
Now, the problem then is you've got outstanding balance this side that can't be paid.
ICC.
With the ICC. Can't
Even
be paid.
The board is no longer there. That can.
Yeah. But the board, obviously, as well, there's a thing about product deployment, because they're also taking a side in hiding this corruption, which became a problem for me, because end of the day is initially there's this agreement there's going to be Women's League conference, and whereas there was no Women's conference, and on the same day there was
basically
ANC
it was
conference.
going to be a women's function.
It was a women's function paid by the city,
and then
then I picked up. There was no event, but fortunately I was able to pick up before the final day that there is this agreement happening. But end of the day, then we were able to expose, despite city leadership denying that they ever agreed to host the ANC conference. But later then the results came out from the investigation that indeed.
I think we will be happy to find out that the payment was not made, because then you saved us the public funds. It was only on paper agreement. On paper transaction. Moving fast forward now we are sitting with the council itself. We are within the council and we are still exposing even further corruption actions that are taking place in there. Don't you feel sometimes threatened, or do people not follow you around? No, you are not a whistleblower. You are way above what we can call a whistleblower, because you are there, you provide evidence, and whenever we require, and you issue those statements, more especially now that you are under Action SA. I want to find out if you don't ever get threats, and if you can share with us who basically supplies you with all this information. Because you seem to be very informed. Like you've just said it now, evidentially so. You managed to capture the corruption before it took place. But how do you get to this information before everybody else? Or does it get to everyone and everybody decides to keep quiet?
Yeah, I think what I was saying is we need to have a step towards fighting corruption. Our leaders previously, they were fighting against apartheid, the system. And they really took time and dedicated whatever energy they had to fight against the system. And they knew what they wanted to achieve after that. Now, here we are facing a dilemma of corruption in this democracy. Now, there should be leaders who are prepared to die if they have to for the truth and also fighting corruption. Now, the issue of whether you are scared, whether people follow you or not, look, I understand KZN is one of the provinces where there is political killings, and also whenever you fight corruption, you know what it may happen,
Yes,
but bottom line is, for me, what's more important as well is that we need more leaders who are prepared to be brave enough to fight the cancer of corruption. But if we have more leaders, then you have whistleblowers feeling comfortable. So I think I'm one of the politicians in KZN where whistleblowers feel comfortable to give me information because they know they're protected. Because you ask me how I get information. I get information from those individuals who want to fight corruption, but who can't do it. But they've got information on corruption. So someone must be brave. But I wish there can be more people like myself who are prepared, even if you have to die, as long as you die for the truth. That's what matters.
That's very profound. And I love that one because we perhaps are all activists in our own corners, but then people are very fearful, more especially in KZN, which leads us, again, Mr. Mngango, to the next discussion point, whereby...
Sorry, before we get there, to make an example, I raised an issue last year on corruption on fitness centers. There are 5 fitness centers to be built by Sports and Recreation Department.
Oh, okay.
So I got information about the corruption, that money has been spent. This project was supposed to start on 2017. 2021, there was nothing. I raised the issue with the premier. It was Nomsa Dube then. Then I asked her to investigate the matter, only to find that the HOD decided, instead of dealing with the corruption in the department as raised by myself, decided to suspend someone they thought is a whistleblower. So for me, it says government itself is not prepared to fight corruption because, as I'm talking to you now, the current CFO of that department is suspended for 5 months now, alleged to have been a whistleblower.
In sports and recreation?
Yes. So you can go and check that. She is currently suspended. I don't even know the person, but she's been accused, what I'm hearing, she's been accused of having given me information.
Of leaking the...
I've never met the person. I don't even know the person. Yes, I did receive information from other people.
Who's this person?
Current CFO. I don't know her name.
What's her name? You don't know her name? No, we will find out and we'll bring her here.
But remember, she's a CFO. There's only one CFO in the department. She's currently suspended. I'm saying it's a fact that there is someone who is being victimized for being accused of reporting corruption. Now, the big question is how then we can fight corruption when our own government is fighting individuals? Was it a threat to anyone who may want to report corruption because they know now if I report, they will be investigating who report corruption. So we want to see where all of us, we can fight this cancer of corruption.
No, I wish we had enough time, Mr. Mngwango, so that we can discuss these corruption cases. But then I must not treat you of what we need to discuss here. I looked into the Action SA's constitution. You have what you call it's preliminary or interim constitution. Yeah. I read through it, and all the issues that we are discussing, basically, they all lead to one thing, or to one perception, or to one derivative here, if I may call it that. Now you are sitting at Action SA. I'm leading to the issue of these foreign spaza shops. I think it's going to be a very huge one, because when you live here, the public and us here, we are going to be viewing you as a different person, perhaps. But I want to lead to it. Here now, you are at Action SA, with all the constitution that says supposedly Action SA should lead the country. This is what we are promising. Yeah, a lot of prosperous things. The change in education system, the ethical leadership, and all such, which is good. But I want to find out. I didn't see the land issue, which I think is common to each and every conscientized black. Because when we speak about all such issues, the economic issues, which is envisaged in that constitution, it all leads back to the fact that, okay, right, but then we can be economic players, but then without land, we are shortfall. We can be whatever, but then without the land and the resources, how come is it that Action SA does not include that critical point, the minerals, the land? And I saw somewhere there's a line where it says there'll be less inequality. But then every black person, believe me, no matter how well off you are, eventually when it comes to the land issue, you can have billions and everything, but then you still can become conscientized by the fact that our people do not have land. How do you then sit and draft a constitution without involving that particular aspect?
I think the assumption that the constitution have to address issues is wrong.
Okay.
The policies. I will challenge anyone to go and read our policies. We had a policy conference. You spoke about the interim constitution. Interim constitution is about how you structure yourself and what you stand for. But you need to go to policies, because that's where you will see how Action SA talks about in detail how we can transform our economy. You won't get in the constitution. How we could address the issue of land.
I read the wrong document.
You read the wrong document.
Okay.
So
I agree.
So now the issue is, it's clear in our constitution that in order to address the economic issue in our country and the gap between those who have or those who don't have, you need to deal with the question of land by ensuring that people have access to land.
Okay.
So now it can't be true that we are signed on land, because you can't address economy without the means of production, and the main one is land.
Yeah. Okay. It's my bad. I must apologize, because I read that you are still going to visit us again for another episode, and we'll be dealing with much more details and specific to that. But now, I remember in one of your phrases, you stated that you are unapologetic about that. How are your then white counterparts within the organization feeling about that? Because I know if you would have raised that within the DA, you would have, broken trust and everything of that sort. Knowing, after having done the study on policies and the constitutions of all other various political organizations, I know DA will not support that, but how is it supported or welcomed in the Action SA?
I think, first of all, remember, when you join a party, no one is forced. You join the party with its constitution and its policies, right? No one is forced. So now, there should be a clear understanding first that says there was apartheid in our country, and black people in the main were oppressed, and they are still behind in many ways. Even today's education doesn't address the issues that should be addressed actually. If you take ingane efunda emakhaya, they're still left behind. It's just a matter of attending school. It's not like someone or your daycare basically, because this education that we get today, it doesn't take us to a point where we can compete with those who are privileged. And the issue now is when you're a white person, for you to be accommodated or feel comfortable within the Action SA space, you have to understand first that there is white privilege that you have on your own. Because what happened, for example, previously, you'll find most white people are not admitting the white privilege that they have. Definitely. It's not their fault. It's the system previously. Because remember, the system previously favored them and they had a privilege. So it doesn't mean you demonize them when you're saying you've got privilege because of your race. It's a fact. Now, what then you need to do? You can't have a country that prosper when the majority is left behind.
Definitely.
Now, it then means it's in the interest of every white person in this country to ensure that the black people as well are taken closer to the mainstream economy. Because if you don't do that, you will find that the revolution is where it comes about, where you find, for example, the issue of unrest. Unrest was a typical example of the ticking bomb in this country. That the more there's poverty amongst abantu abathize in the country,
the more there's education.
Exactly. So the anger, because someone who's hungry can't even think.
They just
lose the thinking. So now it then becomes a responsibility for everyone who's privileged, including some of us now who are in a position of influence in terms of policy direction, etc. So we need to make sure that we bring abantu abamnyama back there closer, because the gap become the issue. Because right now you'll find even amongst the black people now, amongst ourselves, there is that elite that we have now, and the majority is left behind, which is a problematic issue for this country. That is why I'm saying we then need, even beyond Action SA, it's just normal that we can't accept the abnormality that we have in our country, where the majority is living under poverty. We need to change things.
I believe your policies speak to that, what you've just narrated. It's okay. We will like to believe that as well, and even those that are watching would like to believe that as well, Mr. Mngako. Even though we do understand that we are in a platform, not a platform, we are in an environment in South Africa, whereby that realization will take a couple of years to come, if it's a couple of years, because of one thing. We believe that there should be that reset button that says, wait, let us start all over again. But while you are also acknowledge the fact that you do point it out that some white people are still not accepting the fact that they are sitting on the control seats of this economic without wanting to release some responsibilities and some duties or bring about the rest of the players, which I think it's human nature. But with that, then, Mr. Mngako, before we let you go, now I want us to basically go into a very current and trending foreign internationals that are coming in to occupy some economic sectors. I don't want to say spaza shops, because there are some sort of businesses. I want your views, first personally, in person, and I want to see or give us an emphasis on how your policies as Action SA addresses this, or what is your collective view as Action SA, knowing very well, taking in cognizance that we, the masses and the neutral people, look up to you as a provincial leader. I know you're a provincial leader on the part of Action SA, but then us, we look at everybody that holds such position as our esteemed leader. So give us confidence and give us a way forward, or drive us through the right direction on how to treat this.
So, Makeba, the economic question is a very important question in a country where there is high level of unemployment and poverty. Now, the issue is we can't have a situation where we still have the so-called the bourgeoisies versus the working class, and this huge gap. And our position of Action SA is this: there's nothing wrong to have people in this country accessing economy and have wealth. It's fine, but we are saying the gap can't be so wide. So meaning we must find ways of uplifting the working class, the poor, closer to those who are on the upper bracket. That's the best way to do if you want peace in our country. The issue of spaza shop, we recently did amendments in Parliament. So we are calling for these amendments. What we are saying here, we are saying 100% ownership of spaza shops must be reserved only for South Africans. And I must qualify this. We are not, when we say spaza shop, we don't mean the tuck shop where you just sell cigarettes. No, chips, yeah. We mean the township economy. We mean every business in a township, in a rural area, whereas Black South Africans reside in the main.
That is why I want to call it spaza shops.
Yes, we're not referring to that as a tuck shop. We are referring to any business in a township. We are saying it must be reserved for South Africans, because we understand that before 1994, these spaza shops were functioning. There were businesses owned by Umkhizo, Dlamini, Banbani, Makaya, Lokshini. We knew that was working. And after this immigration started in this country, we then have this problem where people come and say, no, but South Africans are lazy. I don't believe they're lazy. South Africans need opportunities. They just need a space to operate. And there's no reason why we can allow foreigners in our townships when we've got South Africans who can run these businesses. I keep saying, even in Tshwane, the mayor in Tshwane, Action SA mayor in Tshwane, has said she won't allow any registration for a foreigner, as the president have said they must register. So we are saying even it's wrong for president to say they must also register. Why they must even register? But some will come and say, but the law doesn't allow that, the constitution that. We are saying, if the law doesn't allow South Africans to empower each other, change the laws. Because it's not international communities pass these laws. It's not NGOs that make laws that pass these laws. We are saying, I'm still of the view that says, if there's a problem with the legislation prohibiting us as South Africans to empower South Africans, then we must change that law. We can't keep hiding behind the constitution, behind the laws, and say, no, it's unconstitutional to do this against a foreigner. We believe every country always take care of their own people first. Yeah. Why South Africa will firstly think about foreigners before we think for ourselves. For us to empower those who are in the townships, who want to start businesses, who believe they can and have means to start businesses, our government must start looking at empowering them with skills, to make sure that we've got fundings to fund small businesses. In that way, we can deal decisively with the question of poverty and unemployment by ensuring that we support those businesses.
Yeah, look, that's very decisive and insightful again. I'll try and be specific, but I also want you to define to us who is a foreigner, then who is the good foreigner, who's the bad foreigner, because then we will suddenly develop this narrative that a foreigner is somebody that comes from the African countries, and then a foreigner can never come from England or come from Italy. That is the problem I think we find ourselves as Black South Africans having to sort of like comprehend. And I also want, this is your second last question, I also want to find out from you, because it was a submitted question. There's a lady that submitted a question and said, you must ask Mr. Mngcwango, as Action SA, how are they going to be recognizing women in leadership in South Africa? Should they be given a chance to lead either the province or the country, with the likes of knowing that there is these systematic injustices that takes place in the South African political setting, and how is Action SA going to address that? And I quickly went and I read and I viewed that you have women in leadership in your national, what you call, squad. So give us just a brief on who's a foreigner in South Africa, and how are you going to recognize women?
Look, the question is clear. Someone who's born in South Africa from parents who are South Africans become a South African automatically. And unless if you're a neutralized person, there's someone, maybe your parents, one is South African, one is a foreigner, then you become South African. But I must say, the foreigner is not it's not a race issue. It's a question to say where you come from. Whether you come from China, America, Egypt, Kenya, anyway, we're foreigner.
Sorry, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but then we don't have these problems against the Chinese and against all there are illegal Chinese people, there are illegal white people that are sitting at Umhlanga, selling drugs and everything of that sort. But then nobody actually stands up and say, let's go to Umhlanga and, investigate or perhaps fight those people. But then suddenly, because the people are living with us on the same streets, we view them as close. Then we call them foreigners that are coming to upset the economic setting. I want that one. They address it to me in that sense, Mr. Mwa.
I think Mangebe, I'll address with examples, because I believe in practical examples. I've been fighting with Chinese in Mandeni who are exploiting our black people there, and also even employing other foreigners. I've been fighting Chinese in Newcastle. Even now, the Premier went to investigate and arrested about 268 legal foreigners in a Chinese factory. It's because Action SA took a march against Labour Department about those Chinese. So it's wrong narrative to think we only fight for Africans. We fight for anyone as a foreigner who is doing illegal work in our country, regardless whether you're white or Chinese or Indian. As long as you are a foreigner, we are saying immigration laws must apply to any foreigner, regardless of their currency.
We will dwell more on that on the next episode. Just give us something on the women question that was submitted.
Look, I think for me, I hold the view that we all need to be feminist. I believe that it requires all of us to take a responsibility in ensuring that women are also empowered, because I think there's a double blow for women. They were oppressed with black people, but when you talk of transformation, we seem to be sided only on a race question, not with women. But the recognition as well. If you look at when you recognize women, we have this problem where even when a woman marries someone who's popular, even if a woman is also popular in their own right, but the men dominate.
He gets recognized.
You can make example with Winnie Mandela. Winnie Mandela, I don't believe she has been given that recognition she deserves without being clouded as if she was a shadow of Ubaba Madiba. But you look at in KZN, for example, only now we had a mall called Umkabayi. All this time, someone played a role. We in a land, we are saying we're in a land from Tanzania. One thing that you can tell me being recognized under Umtania, but we all say Susan Umtania, but because she's a woman, no one even recognized that actually, if you are saying KwaZulu-Natal is Umtania, it's a woman that you're referring to, and the role she played in uniting Amazulu, and also she's a mother of the nation by virtue of how she came about to give birth to Senzangakona. So those processes and what happened in the past and what's happening now still shows that women are not given a space. They are powerful women.
You are eating on your time.
Are not given
no, it's okay. Thanks very much, Mwango. We've only got like a few minutes left, and you are eating on your time. Okay, now we are wrapping up. But then I want we've got LGEs coming up in 2016. If you can give us a message for the LGEs according to Action SA, and bese usitshela ukuthi bani lo buposte naye WhatsApp ofana nomsholo Zizolo. And you just give us that, then we can say our goodbyes.
No, all I can say is elections are coming, 2026. South Africans, I think the good thing about this previous election, we've seen that we can vote for different parties. And I think the fact that ANC lost its majority in parliament provincially shows that South Africans can change their votes. As Action SA, we are just here to service the communities. We are clear what needs to be done. We are for ethical leadership. We want to make sure we fight corruption, but also deliver services and also provide quality education and healthcare system, which has become a problem in our country. But also grow economy. You can't see economy is growing, but while you still see poverty and unemployment in our country.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mngwango. I wish we had more time, but our interview, our engagement ends here. Hopefully you will bless us again with your insights and visit us on Politics Plus. We are hoping that you will be coming again. This comes to an end, our discussion with Mr. Mngwango, our Action SA Provincial Chairperson, as well as the Honorable PR Councillor eThekwini. We would like you to subscribe and follow us on YouTube and all the social media channels to view this interview. And we are hoping you join us again for the next episode. Thank you.